Okay, let's talk about some of the other features in Onshape. First one is thicken, and this one's pretty self-explanatory. You can thicken uh, any surface or face of your part. You can change the direction of thicken, right? And in this case, it'll automatically swap to the remove and actually remove material. And you can actually thicken both ways. So you'll see it's 10 millimeters down, but in this case, the material it adds is taken up by the part already, so it doesn't really show. All right, just like with your extrudes, you can click new and create a new part, right, from your thickened material, or you can just add it to an existing part. Okay, next up is your fillet. This one changes sharp edges into rounded edges, like that. With this arrow, I can change the radius of my fillets. And you'll notice the cross section of your fillet, in this case, is circular. I have it selected. So it's going to create an arc, and that's why you're going to need a radius value, because an arc is defined by its radius. Right? Okay. So over here you can see I've selected this circular extrusion, and I've selected the edge and made it filleted. I can do that with the inner edge as well. Oh, sorry. I think the radius is a little too large for 1 millimeter. There you go. I can also select something like this arc here. And you'll notice it actually fillets these lines that are already tangent to the arc. And that is what tangent propagation controls. Right? If I toggle it off, you'll see it only fillets the arc. So by default, this is already checked off for you, so you don't need to worry about that. Now, there are actually different types of fillets, right? You can change the cross section. So essentially, if I swap between, you see conic here, and circular, you'll notice the conic adopts a more, well, conic shape. And you can edit that with your radius and your row. Curvature is similar, but in this case, you have this magnitude value. And if you change the magnitude value, you can make the shape flatter and flatter. All right, as this value nears 0, it's going to grow flatter and flatter. All right. So fillets are useful for CNC. So when you're actually cutting out your part in a workshop with a CNC machine, let's say you're creating it out of like a block of wood and using this cylindrical bit. So it's like a cylinder that's spinning really rapidly, right? And you're cutting through this material. Now, you won't be able to make this exact piece with that cylindrical bit. And as you can see over on this edge, if a cylinder went past this, right, it's not going to create this perfectly sharp edge. It's going to create a sort of more filleted shape. So what you can do is you can fillet this, and when you transport this model into your CNC machine and it reads the data for it to be cut, it's not going to give you an error, right? So that's just one application, being able to avoid errors in your CNC and account for your bit's shape. Okay. Next is your chamfer. Now chamfer is relatively simple. You can click on the edge just like with your fillet, and it's actually going to cut that edge. All right. And I have an equal distance chamfer here, so it's going to be 5 millimeters, to the left, and then 5 millimeters down. Two distances is going to allow me to cut in two distances. So you'll see it's 5 meters down, and then 10 millimeters to your left, and then you can change the direction. Distance and angle, sort of a similar concept. If I do a 60 degree, it's going to cut 5 millimeters down, and then this horizontal cut length is going to be dependent on your angle. So again, I can change the direction, and that's that. Next up, we have your draft. Now there are two types of draft that I've made here. Right? By default, it's your neutral plane draft, and you'll see it's going to require both a. Hold on a second. I need to fix my neutral plane. Here we go. It's going to require both a neutral plane and an entities to draft. So for this example, I have a neutral plane as my highlighted orange surface here, and then my entities to draft is this other yellow surface here. And your drafts are going to add an angle. It's going to either remove material or add material at an angle. So you'll see here, right now it's adding material, right? This is supposed to be a flat piece of shape or flat surface, and it's going to add material. If I change the direction, it's going to cut material, right? And it's going to cut depending on the degrees I set it. So I can do 15 and they'll cut smaller. Okay? So if I change the neutral plane, you'll see it changes the direction of the cut. So you'll see here, let's make this exaggerated so you can see it. It's going to cut this way now. Right? Right now my neutral plane is now on this surface. Change it to, if I change it to this surface, it's cut the other direction. Alright? So really your neutral plane is just a reference point for your draft. Okay. Next up is your parting line draft. Now this one's, you won't really be needing this. To be honest, I haven't used it that much. So I guess I'll just show you the basic one-sided parting line draft. Okay. So your pole direction, you're going to select a face, and it's going to be the face that the direction of the draft pulls away from. So you'll see the draft sort of goes inwards from my face, my pole direction. If I change it to this face, it's going to do it but the other way, right? It's going to pull away from this face now. Okay, and your parting edges are the edges that you're going to draft. So there you go. You'll notice they're now going inwards by the degrees I have specified. Or I can make them go outwards. Alright. Okay, 3 more to go. Ribs, shells, and holes. So I guess I'll deal with holes first. Let's just make a hole. There's your different types of holes. I'm not going to go through counterbore and countersink because that's dependent on whether or not how much experience you have in the construction department. But let's just do a simple hole first. So it's just a straight down hole. Here you can change the diameter of your hole. And here you can change the depth of your hole. And okay, I actually need a sketch point to place my holes, so I haven't made one yet. Let's just try here. Just do my front plane, make a point. I guess I'll make a line and then a point here. Doesn't really matter what it's defined as. And now I should be able to make a hole from this point. Your merge scope is going to be your part 1, right? Because I only have a part. And oh dear, it looks like this doesn't work because I have a shell and the hole doesn't. It cuts through. There's nothing to cut here, so let me try that again. It's not the front plane. I'm just going to click the surface of the face here. And that should fix it. Right, and now you have a hole. And there you go. Now, you could just extrude it, right? Draw a sketch from a hole and extrude it. But the hole's useful because if you have a number of different, if you're required to use or make more than one hole, and there's a number of different holes here, it's very easy to change the properties of your holes. So you can change the diameter and your depth here, right? If you have multiple sketches with extrudes, then you're gonna have to go into every single extrude and edit the extrusion values. The hole is just much more easier for this purpose. All right. So when you're making these objects and it requires this cut or a hole, think about which one you want to do. Okay. So the next one you're going to have is your shell. So you'll see I already have the shell here, so let's just try suppressing that. And now all this shape is a sketch. I have to find a little sketch here and then an extrude. I've extruded out. So my shell is going to select faces to remove. Just cut out my my face here, and it's going to make my object a shell. All right, I can change the thickness of the walls and change the direction of the shell. Right, I can actually expand the material if I wanted to, or I can make it hollow. So parts, I click on the part, and you'll notice now, if I confirm it, and let's just say I make a sketch and make your, it doesn't matter, I don't have to define this, make a remove extrusion. You'll see inside is hollow. Wow. Alright. Was I? The shell. Unsuppressed. Okay, so there you go. Now, your ribs are going to be a little different. Let me just delete this. So you'll see I have these sketches up here, right? They're defined on the front plane. And what your rib function is going to do is it's going to create these sort of extrusions based off of these sketches. So my sketch profiles is here. I'm going to click on the ones that I want to extrude out. And my part is going to be part 1. And you'll see it's only like this because it doesn't know the direction of the ribs. What if I want my profiles to cut downwards into the shape, right? I'm going to click normal to sketch plane. Change the direction. So you'll see now it's cutting outwards. Change the direction, and that's going to actually create my ribs. Ribbing is an additive feature, so you're adding material. You're never going to be removing material. Okay, so that's why this doesn't work. There's nothing really to remove. All right. It's important to note that since you're adding material, if I did it, let's say, if I did these sketches, see my sketches here. If I did this from, let's say, this face, and I did it with the same options, it's not going to work because it's adding material, right? And if I have sketches here, I can't really add material because there's a wall blocking my rib. All right, so keep that in mind. Here you can change the thickness of your rib. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay. And that about covers this entire set of features.